What is up, everybody? It is Braxton Kendall here, also known as BK Voiceover. I'm joined here by Brandon, and welcome to episode 2 of our tentatively named Walk the Hawk podcast, where we're just going to be going through and just giving our thoughts about everything that's going on in the world of the Seattle Seahawks. And since the start of free agency about a week ago, there has been more than a lot of stuff to go ahead and discuss. How would you give me your brief thoughts on how free agency has gone in your case?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks did a pretty good job in this free agency period. We were obviously dealing with a lot after this rush trade and losing Bobby, but I think, they spent their money pretty well. They haven't overpaid for anybody. I was not 100%, on board with them going after a aging veteran pass rusher, like a Von Miller, Chandler Jones. Yes, they're very productive, but there's a chance to fall off. And I think that I'd give him like a B for this. I think Will Dissly was a little bit overpaid for what he's been doing, but when he gets the ball in his hands, he can break some tackles. He's good blocking tight ends. And I really like bringing back Rashad Penny for just 1 year. I think, it's a good thing because if he does, fall off, then one would be that, maybe it's not the answer. His body's not holding up. And second would be that if you want to bring him back, it won't be as expensive. But, it's great for Rashad to be able to prove himself. And, running backs in this league, they don't have a long shelf life, but I think that the way he ended last season is awesome. And then Quinton Jefferson, bringing him back, I think he'll fit in a 3-4 defense. He was a 4-3 defensive tackle, if I'm correct. And putting him in as a 3-4 end, he could definitely do a good job. He's always consistent at getting to the pass rush, getting to the quarterback. And I think this is going to mean that Rasheem Green, unfortunately, is going to move on, who's a good to average, consistent depth pass rusher. But I feel like he doesn't really fit a 3-4, just given his play style. And then bring back Kyle Fuller. I'm just looking at transactions right here on ESPN. Bring back Kyle Fuller. That's not really the move, in my opinion, but getting Austin Blyth, that's definitely going to be an upgrade. He was on some successful offenses in the past, like the Chiefs and the Rams. And Nwosu is actually a very interesting player. I didn't watch too many of the Chargers games. A lot of that due to the fact the Seahawks are playing then. But he had a very successful end to the season. I remember in that Raiders Sunday night game, I want to say he had like 2 sacks, he had a bunch of QB pressures. Mm-hmm. And $10 million a year is a lot for somebody like him. But I'm excited to see what he could do alongside on the opposite side of Darrell Taylor. Then Artie Burns, that's for $2 million. That's a great signing. He had a really good PFF grade. I mean, it's not end all say all, but he has a lot of potential. He's a first round draft pick. And the one thing that I would say, I'm rambling a little bit here, but DJ Reed, losing him kind of sucks. I mean, if we're gonna have Sidney Jones and Trey Brown as our 1 and 2 corners, that's good. And both them, but the issue is both them have injury concerns, and we haven't seen them be consistently good for a long period of time. So we'll see if front office is good with that. But yeah, we'll go to you, whatever you think.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, man. Yeah, and I think we're going to get into more depth on a lot of these guys going down the line. So I think I kind of had this structured out that we were just going to go like piece by piece, going through re-signings, then cuts, then
go for it.
And then signings with other teams, and then new players, and then talk about a couple of the other interesting tidbits along the lines of like Baker Mayfield, or where we might be seeing this team go to get another veteran QB option. So like you kind of mentioned earlier, so far, if I'm keeping up with this properly, the Seahawks re-signed 6 of their unrestricted free agents so far. So that's tight end Will Dissly, safety Quandre Diggs, cornerback Sidney Jones, defensive tackle Al Woods, center/guard Kyle Fuller, and running back Rashad Penny. And I definitely agree with what you said regarding Will Dissly. I think that I was fine with bringing back Will Dissly, but I think 3 years, $24 million is a bit rich for my taste. But I guess when you look at the guaranteed money, it's really like a 2-year, $14 million deal that you can get out of pretty easily after 2 years. So it's not too terrible, and his 2022 cap, it isn't too bad. Quandre Diggs. So in my dream off-season scenario series, I didn't have us resigning Quandre Diggs just because I was and still am of the mindset that Quandre Diggs and dropping 30 plus million a year on your safety position is not a very great idea, and you should invest that in like a solid corner or other things. And I think because they chose to re-sign Quandre Diggs, it kind of pushed DJ Reed out the door, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So as far as the contract, I'm not upset about the contract. I think he got pretty close to what I was expecting him to get. So 3 years, 40 million, like about a little more than 13 million a year. Unlike a lot of contracts, the Quandre Diggs contract is actually front loaded. So you pay the most in the first 2 years of the contract, and then you're only paying him after the first 2 years. There's like no guaranteed money left on the contract. So kind of like Disley, if it doesn't work after the first 2 years, there's a very easy out in year 3. Sidney Jones, I think, is by far and away their best re-signing. 1 year, 3.6 million. He got way less than I was expecting. I think we talked about that briefly in like our first episode. I was expecting somewhere along the lines of like 5-6 million, and I would have been okay with that. So this is a fantastic like small pickup. I think the only thing that could have made it better is if you locked him up for 2, maybe 3 years. But I can't really complain too much about that. What do you think so far about the Diggs and the Jones signing?
Yeah, so Quandre I was kind of either way with. He's coming off a serious injury, and paying safeties that are nearing 30 has generally, it doesn't always work out. We saw what happened with Earl, obviously, after we let him go. But the way Quandre handled himself, too, with, not flipping off the ownership and all that, when he gets injured, like Earl did, it shows that, he did deserve to be paid, in my opinion. And he's been a very consistent, he's one of the only people on our team who really consistently gets turnovers. DJ Reed, who we lost, unfortunately, did a lot of that, too. But, I really like him, and now we have to go and see. We really need him and Jamal to really play like both top 5 safeties that both of them are capable of being. Mm-hmm. And we'll have to see, and then with Sidney Jones, I think that was, if we weren't going to sign DJ Reed, that's, sorry, we can't go into the season that young and inexperienced at corner. At least Sidney Jones has been in the league for a while, and he's a prototypical Pete Carroll corner. He's a little bit bigger in size, so I definitely like it,
Yeah, definitely agree on that. And the whole fact that like Sidney Jones, like he was when he was coming out in the draft, like he was predicted to be like the first cornerback taken, which is like wild. And then that ACL injury just like completely derailed.
Yeah, for sure.
Derailed any hope of that. So I'm really happy that he's having his comeback party like in Seattle, and I hope we were able to keep him around for a while.
Yeah.
So next up, we brought back defensive tackle Al Woods, 2 years, $9 million. I'm okay with this deal. He absolutely outplayed his $3 million contract last year, so the money is about in line with what I would expect. I was expecting him to get like a 1-year deal just because I'm not sure if he'll be around after another season, just because he is getting up there in age. He's going to be, I think, 35 at the start of next season. So, what are your thoughts?
With Al Woods, I think he played great last year. He's been a very consistent player for us. And also, if we're losing Bobby and some of our veteran players, we need to have somebody who's a run stuffer, especially for 3-4 defense. I don't know if he's a prototypical 3-4 nose tackle, but he brings a little bit of everything. He's a good leader for us. And I do think that, we probably, 4.5 a year or something like that. That's a little bit high for somebody's age. Potentially, we could have seen what he was going to get in the open market, but I'm totally okay with it. We have the money to spend right now, and we have to bring back some veterans. If we're going to bring back Quandre, it's clear to me that we're obviously not tanking. I'm not sure if you caught the Pete Carroll press conference with John Schneider last week, but they seemed pretty adamant this was a retool, not a rebuild. And as a fan, you love to hear that, even though some fans obviously think, oh, it's like the NBA, you could just tank and go from there. But, it's good to bring these veterans so we can compete in our division, and we'll see what happens. I'm totally on board with that. So I definitely like bringing back some veterans.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Between like his incoherent rambling about second chances and stuff. Yeah, I definitely got that impression that it's that always compete mantra that he always preaches. So yeah, I don't think that they're gonna try and rebuild. I think that they're gonna reload and try and compete again. If not this year, like try and build up a young core that they can
definitely
really compete with next season. Two more quick re-signings or unrestricted free agent signings or re-signings. Rashad Penny at 1 year, 5.75 million. I thought that was a great to bring Rashad Penny back. He really came into his own in those last 5 games of the season. The injury concern obviously is an issue, so I don't think that this should be their only move at addressing the running back position. And I also am still not sold that Chris Carson's coming back next season. I think that this is a position that'll just in the draft. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that 1 year deal?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. We can't go the way that he played at the end of the year. It would be a shame to let him just walk, And I think, like I said in the last podcast, he reminds me a little bit of a Thomas Rawls type of back where he's not as physical as Rawls, but he's a lot faster, a lot more explosive, and he's good vision. And obviously, with a running back, one of the main things that we need is a good offensive line. And I feel like they're starting to address that a little bit. I'm not sure. We had a lot of rumors about Trent Brown possibly coming in. He's a big physical 6'8" tackle who could play either side. And I don't know if that's going to end up happening. I forgot, honestly, if he signed somewhere. Wasn't paying as much attention as other Seahawks fans on that. I don't think he did. But
he actually just re-signed with the Patriots this morning.
Oh, man. Yeah, I missed that one. That sucks. But
yeah.
Anyways, so he worked really well with Curhan, who was playing well, and Phil Haynes. Both those guys, he seemed to have production when they were in the lineup. So I really do like him, but I agree with what you said. We really need to see what we can do in the running back room. Chris Carson has not been able to stay healthy. And I mean, he's a very solid back, but it would be cool to also get another explosive back like Penny, because we seem to have, DJ Dallas and Travis Homer are good players, but they're not necessarily the biggest breakaway backs, So I think, just getting some more competition in that room is important. But yeah, I mean, Penny's here, and I saw his press conference today where they were interviewing him, Drew Lock, and a few of the other new guys, and he seemed really excited to be here. And he even said that him and Carson want to be the best, running back duo in the league. So we'll see. I'm wishing the best for both them because they're really hardworking guys. So yeah. And then who was the second person we were talking about in this?
The second, you kind of mentioned him briefly in your opening statement, but probably one of the most maligned players from the Seahawks roster this past season. Definitely my most maligned player.
Oh, yeah.
Center Kyle Fuller. There was one Twitter account that they heard about the Kyle Fuller signing and immediately thought we signed Kyle Fuller, corner from the Bears, the corner, Broncos. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. Yeah. So the Will Dissly is a good player, and that was overpaid. Kyle Fuller is just a bad player that should not be paid at all. I really don't understand what their fascination is with this guy. I mean, PFF is a good tool, but you shouldn't take it as gospel. When you are ranked as the 38th best center in the league out of 38 qualifying centers, I think that should start ringing some alarm bells in some people's heads.
Yeah, sure.
And if the fact that he wasn't benched for the rest of the season after that horrible Saints game where I think he got a pass blocking grade of 0, if that's not going to totally bench you for eternity, I don't know what is. So if he's just coming in to be a warm body in camp and it's a minimum deal with no guaranteed money, I guess it's okay. But again, I really hope he's not on the 53-man roster this coming year. He has done nothing to deserve a spot, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, it seems like Pete Carroll has a lot of loyalty to these backups that, just haven't really proved themselves. I mean, it just seems like you were saying, getting a 0 PFF pass blocking grade is just unacceptable in the game. And I mean, I don't know if they see something we don't. I'm not a scout. I can't say much about offensive linemen because, that would be, obviously I don't know as much about what I'm talking about there, but it seems like one of the things could be that he wants a backup in his system a little bit. If they do end up getting some rookies and they take a little while to adjust, at least, they will have a backup that's used to being there under Waldron. But I guess this also means that, Ethan Posich isn't coming back at this point, which is fine. I'm sure that he's probably at this point has to be one of the upper echelon centers who could also play guard a little bit in the free agent market, even though I don't believe he's signed or visited many places yet.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious.
I haven't heard too much about that, but Yes, I mean
Um,
it's not a good move. That's all I could say on it, probably, in my opinion.
yeah, per the tier list that I'm looking at, your top remaining centers, it's really bare right now. It's Matt Paradis of the Panthers, then it's Ethan Posick, and then it's Austin Ryder, former Chiefs center, played for the Dolphins, but not a whole lot.
Yeah,
Yeah. Glad we picked up Blyth when we did because yeah, there's really not a whole lot left.
for sure. And I guess this means that unfortunately we're not going to get your boy Linderbaum in the first rounds. If he,
I
but I mean
would
that's probably not the biggest need. But maybe
I mean I wouldn't close the door on that yet, just because I mean look at the Chiefs. They brought Austin Blythe on to be their starting center, and then they
yeah,
drafted Creed Humphrey in the second round, and he just proceeded to be a Pro
for
Bowl
sure.
center his rookie
Yeah,
season. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't expect them to take Linderbaum, and nor do I necessarily want them to take a center with the
yeah. I think at this point it's
number
leaning
9
towards
pick.
defense. Probably that's what I'm
Yeah,
going to go with. I don't think. Yeah, I think
it's
that's
either defensive line, corner, or offensive tackle is where I think
yeah,
they're going to go. But yeah, so those are the unrestricted free agents. We can kind of like breeze over the tenders because they don't really mean a whole lot. Um, so restricted free agents, they tendered guard Phil Haynes and defensive tackle Brian Monet. Fantastic depth signings. Phil Haynes played in his limited snaps, played amazing. He does have injury problems, but as far as like keeping him around for one more year as a backup is a no-brainer. Same with Brian Monet. He'll be Al Woods' backup as your nose tackle in this new 3-4 defense. So pretty solid pickups.
definitely. What do you think about just looking at this too? Ryan Neal coming back. I know we were talking about him in the last one. He's just a pretty interesting player because he has the ability to play some corner, and
Yeah,
he's good overall
yeah,
player, and or at least for depth wise, pretty versatile.
yeah, absolutely. So I misspoke in the last podcast because I thought Ryan Neal was an unrestricted free agent.
Oh yeah,
Um, but yeah, he was actually an exclusive rights free agent. So we got him for a year. We got him for another year for super cheap, like a little over $1 million, and that's like
yeah, it's like
no brainer. Tender John Radigan, he was a good special teamer last season. Did tear his ACL, so really hope he comes back from that soon because he was pretty good on kicker on covering kick returns. Tanner Muse, glad they brought him back. He's a really intriguing player. We stole him, former third round pick of the Raiders. Stole him off of waivers, and I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table because he can also play safety, so he might even back up Adams if he really shows out.
yeah,
And then Penny Hart, good depth piece of wide receiver. Nigel Warrior is another defensive back depth, and then John Reid can play a little outside, can play a little inside. Was able to play a few snaps due to some COVID injuries, but yeah, for the most part, I'm happy with almost all of our re-signings except for maybe Kyle Fuller.
yeah, same here.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that covers all of the players that were Seahawks last year and got brought back by the team. Next up, I'm going to move over to players that got cut as either cap casualties or just not fitting with the system. So aside from the Russell Wilson trade and the Bobby Wagner cut, since then, we've also cut 3 additional players that are all in the front 7. Cut outside linebacker Benson Mayowa, saving you about $1.5 million in cap space. You cut defensive end Carlos Dunlap. He's designated a post-June 1st cut, so that'll save you $5.1 million in cap savings, but you don't have those cap savings until after June 1st. And then last but not least, Carrie Hyder, who signed a 3-year deal with the Seahawks just last season, and he's gone after a year. Saves you a little under $2 million. But what do you think of those cuts?
Okay, so Benson Mayowa, I thought that was somebody who definitely deserved to be cut. He just didn't get to the quarterback, and he was also, but a lot of it was also schematically that we dropped him into coverage a lot. Like at the beginning of the year, it felt pretty ridiculous, like where he was playing. Like I saw him like out like like in zone against some slot receivers, stuff like that. So that was just pretty terrible. Then we had Carrie Hyder, who I thought was super underwhelming. I don't know. I was thinking about it and looking at. Let me just go and look it up. I just want to go see his pass rush grade because it was pretty bad last year.
Yeah, I thought it was like in the high 50s.
We all know it was bad. I don't need to look up the exact numbers, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, he had like I think he had 1 sack in like week 16 or week 17 or week 18, and that's unacceptable for somebody who's getting. What was he making? He was making like
he wasn't making a whole lot. I think he signed like
it was like 3-year deal, right?
I need to go look at the. Okay, I think it was like I think it was like a 2-year deal with like a void year at the end of it. I need to go look it up.
Yeah, it was a 3-year, $6.5 million deal with $3.65 million fully guaranteed. So I mean, nothing crazy, but
yeah, Spotrac reports it as 2 years, $7.6 million. So yeah, not a whole ton, but also like we can get better.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, yeah, like these stats were just pretty bad last year. He had a 75.4, which was pretty bad, and then he had like 7 QB hits, 2 tackles for loss. I mean, you're signing an impact playmaker, and obviously had a good year with the Niners. It could also be though that the Niners, I believe, they run a 3-4, right? So in that type of scheme, the solid scheme, he could be a lot better than that than playing at a 4-3, which we were last year. So I mean, I don't necessarily think he's a bad player, but we need to probably get some fresh blood in there. And the one guy that I was a little bit upset about, regardless of scheme, is just Carlos Dunlap. He's been a veteran. He's been able to get to the quarterback, and regardless, when he's rushing the passer, he at the end of the year he just went off. He was somewhere. He was like the Rashad Penny of our defense in a way. He had like 6 sacks in the final month of the season, give or take, and he's going to be somebody that we're going to miss. But also at the same time, he's an aging player, and this draft is full of pass rushers that could be found mid-round, stuff like that. So I really think we need an entire reboot on that in that defense line. I'd love to add my goal is to add 2 additional pass rushers in this draft. I think that's important, and guys who could really make a difference. And one thing with these cuts is that hopefully Alton Robinson, like we were saying the last one, gets more playing time. He's a pretty athletic edge rusher who has a lot of potential. So we'll see what happens there. But and then also I guess we're going to see LJ Collier get a little bit more time on the field. He's just been super inconsistent. He had some injuries.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, LJ Collier has been disappointing. I think some of that is scheme related. I think some of that is expectations were set a little too high for him he did not belong as a first round pick, but I don't know if he's going to be released. Releasing him doesn't really save you a whole lot. Doesn't even save you like $1 million. But I think if there's a chance to really see how he's going to flourish, I think it's going to be in this 3-4 defense as like a big end. I think having a Shelby Harris on that part of the line to really mentor him, I think could be very beneficial if we end up keeping him around. So definitely. If LJ Collier can't succeed here, I don't know where he can succeed.
Yeah, so. And I guess there's gonna be a competition between him and Quentin Jefferson. We're pretty similar. They both seem like they fit that role potentially as starters. So we'll see what happens there. But
yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing is I'm trying to figure out where Quinton Jefferson might fit on the line. I currently have him behind Poona Ford at that defensive tackle spot on the line, but I could also see him playing that big end spot. So that covers all of the cuts. So I figure we can go ahead and take a look. Excuse me. The players that unfortunately were lost this season. So far there have been I think the 15 unrestricted free agents that the Seahawks had going into the season. 3 of them have signed with other teams. The first one being announced at least was Jamarco Jones. He actually got a little bit more than I was expecting. He got 2 years, $5.75 million with the Titans. So he'll have an opportunity to slide into a backup spot there in Tennessee. So happy for him. I mean, he's a good player. I just don't think he really ever got a chance to really show out. So
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, he had a few battles with Aaron Donald due to injuries in the past few years. I remember one game he played pretty decently against him, I think. So some
yeah,
upside there.
yeah, his minimal snaps, he did play well, but yeah, Dwayne Brown has just been a stalwart there, so he really hasn't had a chance to like start at his natural position, which is
Yeah.
that left tackle spot.
Mhm.
Yeah. So moving on to I think the one that probably stings the most, because I was really pulling for us to bring him back, was DJ Reid reunites in New York with the Jets with his old defensive coordinator Robert Saleh for 3 years, 33 million. By the way, I called that contract to a T. Like, so he got exactly what I was expecting him to get. I think after the Quandre Diggs signing and Sidney Jones resigning, I think DJ Reid walk-in was kind of expected. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, corner was an important position, spent some money, and I didn't want to have this year start off like last year where we just get shredded. But it does seem like, we're one of the things also is that in our division, there's uncertainty around Kyler, there's uncertainty around the Niners, with Trey Lance. It's not like our corners might not be tested like crazy in division, but I think, DJ Reid really took a step up when he was placed at, I forgot what it was like. Was he solidified at left corner this year that he played really well at, or? I completely forgot off the top of my head. I know
Yeah,
he was
so I think
certain spot.
I think I think he slid over to that right corner spot for those first few games, and he played terribly. And then Trey Flowers finally got benched and then cut. They moved him back to his original positions. They started Sidney Jones on the other side, and while for the first little bit Sidney Jones was kind of bad, DJ Reid played like Pro Bowl caliber.
Yeah, for sure.
At that
so I mean, position. I think that just hurts. Just losing another key corner, like you saw Shaq Griffin get a big contract. But I feel like even in a way, DJ Reid, although he might not be as physically gifted as Shaq in terms of the size, speed combo, and stuff like that. Sidney Jones is a huge player. Shaq isn't a huge corner, but I think DJ is super productive, and I think he got a lot from the Jets, but I think he was worth it. So I would have liked to keep him, but like you're saying, you can't invest that much money in the secondary when there's so many issues on both sides of the front sevens, because as they say, you win Super Bowls in the front seven. Mm-hmm. And yeah. So I love it. Also, I think Phantom wants to join. Yeah, I just saw his thing. If you want to, maybe we could add it to the chat and get some more insight.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Is he in that?
Yeah, I'll text him real quick or right in the chat.
Yeah,
together with insight.
Yeah, so we'll hold off on him.
Yeah, definitely. And then Jamarco Jones, the last one. We already talked about Jamarco.
Oh yeah.
Gerald Everett.
Gerald Everett signing a 2-year deal with the Chargers. I think he's gonna. I mean, he was great for us. Yeah. He had a very heartfelt tweet today about how much he loved his time in Seattle, and I think I'm really gonna miss him. I thought he was a great guy. But yeah,
I think he had those 2 bad games against the Niners. That was tragic, but besides that, he really stepped up in the Pittsburgh game. He stepped up in a lot of games where we really needed a receiver to step up. In the Rams game, he was the only guy creating separation. And sorry, you go on. I interrupted you there.
No, you're making a lot of great points, and I appreciate that. Thanks. But yeah, I think a tight end like Gerald Everett is really, really, really going to flourish in that Chargers offense. I mean, taking a look back, Russ didn't really make use of his tight ends, but I think Justin Herbert's going to love Gerald Everett down there. I think it's a perfect fit.
Definitely, yeah. He's kind of like a Jared Cook type, but more athletic.
Exactly. That's
not as tall.
That's the comparison I like.
So yeah. So if Herbert could do work with him, I think Everett's going to be good here.
All right. So Danny also just joined us. So we're just going through the offseason moves that the Seahawks have made between signings and cuts and all the like. So how would you just give us your high level thoughts about the moves that Seattle's made so far?
So far so good. I like Uchenna. I think he'll be good as in the 3-4 scheme that we're running now. I like the signing of Austin Blyth, I think, the most, just because I think center has been a problem since we lost Justin Britt. And I think Austin having, experience with Shane and Andy is going to be huge for this offense and for Drew or whoever's going to start. And that's it on offense. It's just Austin, right? That's the only offensive guy. And Noah, obviously, but we already talked about Noah last week. On defense, Artie Burns, he's kind of had troubles in Pittsburgh, but last year with Sean Desai, he was solid in moments, and I think he can build that with continuing with Sean Desai here in Seattle. And who else did we sign? Uchenna. Am I missing somebody?
Brought back Quentin Jefferson.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I was excited about it.
Yeah.
I really like Hugh Jeff. I think he fits in well. Even just having experience with Clint Hurt. And I think we missed interior pass rush. So adding Shelby Harris and Quinton Jefferson, I think that's awesome for our D-line. I really do. I think we're one piece away from having a very stellar defensive line. And I don't think you could say that for the past, since 2018 with Jaron Reed and Frank Clark. So I think that's huge for our team.
Yeah, I agree on a lot of that. So we just went through the players that ended up leaving. How was the DJ Reid signing with the Jets? How's that got you feeling?
You know what? I think it's okay. I don't hate it. I think DJ Reid is talking up like he's like an all-pro when, like he played well for us. But do you guys remember at the beginning of the season when we put him on the left side of the field and he just looked like he didn't look as great as he did on the right side. And, with this new defense coming along, I think Sean Desai is going to be having corners move, which Pete Carroll hasn't done. And if DJ Reid is only going to be like, a one area guy, the right side of the field guy, then maybe that doesn't work as well. Maybe that's why they're, lowballing him in his opinion. But to me, you know what? I see us drafting a corner in the second, maybe even the first. I'm not sure. So I don't hate it. And I think Trey Brown is really going to be the guy that takes off for us next year, even after his Achilles injury, or was it a patellar? But either way, I'm okay with it. It's fine.
Yeah, for sure. I think Trey Brown, I agree with you on that. I'm excited for Trey Brown. Like when he got his first real starting snaps in that Steelers game where it's overtime and get that dump off screen, and he just comes up and absolutely mauls the guy on fourth down and gets us into a position where we can at least move up the field and do something. That was such a stud play right there. That's the kind of tenacity you want from your
he's physical. He's small. He's only 5'9".
Yeah.
Similar to Jair's height. Jair does have longer arms though, but man, that guy's super physical for his size. He's a thick boy, man. He's a thick boy for his size.
Yeah, definitely is. All right, so Danny, you kind of touched on it, so I'm just going to go through the 4 signings that the Seahawks have made from outside the team, and we'll kind of talk about it in a little more detail here. So the first signing that the Seahawks made, definitely a smaller signing, was picking up one of Sean Desai's guys from when he was on the Bears, picking up Artie Burns, cornerback 1 year for $2 million. Thought it was a fantastic depth signing. He's kind of like the Rashad Penny of corners from the past season, where he didn't really do a whole lot for 2/3 of the year and then just absolutely turned it on. I think in the last 4 games of the season, DJ Reid had the highest PFF grade in the NFL among starting corners. And then Artie Burns was second place right behind him. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on him?
I like Artie. I haven't watched a bunch of tape on him, just because I don't really think that's a name that Seattle fans have been super, involved with, either playing against him or not, because he was in the AFC for the first 4 years of his career. And then we saw him, last year, and he had a good game against us. But yeah, I think Artie, for depth signing for that price, I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect to bring in a guy with the 3-4 DB background that Sean Desai's bringing in. I have zero complaints about the contract, none at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with him on that too. I think that he has some familiarity starting the league. He was first round pick. He has some upside. He's also played in 3-4 in Pittsburgh too, and he can create some turnovers potentially and just fill in whenever anybody's injured or anybody's struggling. So I'm all for this. And for $2 million, that's so cheap for a corner that it's a good move, definitely, especially after losing DJ Reid. We really needed somebody to fill in that spot. I mean, fill in the depth wise, so we can have somebody compete with John Reid for that nickel corner spot, or whoever's can fill that role, or even Ryan Neal if you want to give him a shot.
That's what I read about Artie is that he has experience in the slot, which honestly we all last week on our last episode we all shared our disappointment in Hugo. So if someone can take that Hugo spot, man, that's awesome. And he's a taller guy. He's not 5'9". I think he's 6 foot or 6'1", which means he's bigger.
Yeah,
guy,
6 foot.
Something like that.
I don't have that'd be awesome for him to take that starting nickel spot 100% all day.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So moving on from Burns, I think we all agree that it was a good signing, good depth signing. The biggest contract given out by John and Pete on a per year basis, given out to outside linebacker Uchenna Nwosu, 2 years, $20 million from the Chargers. I didn't realize that, but $10 million a year is the most that the Seahawks under Pete and John have ever offered to an outside free agent, which is just mind blowing to me. But yeah, when I saw this originally, I thought that I still think it is a little bit of an overpay just for his production, but he comes from that Vic Fangio style defense. And also his pressure rate is really good. He's not going to jump off the page on the stat sheet. He only had 5 sacks this past season, but I think he's a great up and comer. He's only 25. So I think he still has a lot of game to play, and I think he's only going to get better. So who wants to chime in first on that?
Like I was saying earlier, I think that's it's a good move. He played very well at the end of the season. The only game I think I honestly paid attention and watched him in was that crazy Raiders Chargers game, week 18. And I think he had 2 sacks in that game and a lot of pressures. And he fits the 3-4 well. He's a little bit, he has experience in that system. Unlike Darrell Taylor, who didn't really, and we were playing him a weak side linebacker, but he didn't really have that. He's never really been a 3-4 edge rusher, but I think he has the skills to do so. So, I really like him. He's young. It's only a 2-year deal, so, we're not committing ourselves long-term, but he could be the guy there, and then we could also bring some competition, but I think he's just a versatile player who has a lot of potential, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I really like the signing. I think, from what I've heard, it's was his success based on being on the opposite side of, what is it?
Bosa?
Yeah, Joey Bosa. But you know what? Honestly, from what I've watched, he's good at batting down balls in the air, and I don't know if you guys saw his interception against Patrick Mahomes. That was an awesome play. And another thing about him is, man, he's so fast that he creates pressure almost automatically, and his sack numbers might not be great, but what he does is he pushes the pocket to go inside, and that's when people like Joey Bosa. What's his name again? Joey Bosa?
Joey Bosa.
Yeah, Joey Bosa. Yeah.
Joey Bosa. That's a lot of how Joey Bosa has gotten so many sacks in his career is by, getting leftovers or secondary pressure. So I think it's a good signing. I think this helps Darrell Taylor. I think Darrell Taylor also helps Uchenna, and I think Uchenna is ready to take that next step with a larger role because he didn't have a huge role in Los Angeles. So I think this is a good move for us. I think he's young, he's physical, he's fast. He wears a strange number, but that's okay. I'm excited. I don't think I still think Seattle's going to draft an edge rusher at 9. So I don't know if he's going to be a starter, but will most definitely be in the rotation a lot. You'll see a lot of Uchenna this year, and I'm excited for it.
All right. Moving from the defensive side of the ball briefly to the offensive side. Might be a year too late, but they finally decided to go a different direction at center, and they signed Austin Blyth to a 1-year, $4 million contract. Played with the Chiefs last season, played snaps at both center and guard, but had an injury in the offseason, which allowed Creed Humphrey to make Pete and John look like total fools and make the Pro Bowl his rookie season. So also great news. He played in LA for several years. He has experience in this McVay style offense that I think that Shane Waldron and Andy Dickerson are trying to like bring to Seattle. So I all in all, I think this is a fantastic signing. He's a great move blocker. He's gonna fit really well in this like zone blocking scheme that I think Walden's trying to still implement. So who wants to add their own thoughts?
Sure. I think Rashad Penny is smiling at this sign. I think this is huge for our run game. This is doubling down on Waldron, which we should have done his first year. Bringing back Kyle Fuller is he's good depth, I guess, but I think this is huge for the O line. I think it's more zone based, which is really Rashad Penny's game. Like, and I know we didn't have this podcast last season, but when Shane Waldron was hired, all I could think about was Rashad Penny's about to eat if he can stay healthy. And then near the end of the season, he did. And this is just doubling down on that, which is awesome. I think we're going to have a great rushing attack next year with Rashad Penny and whoever's number two, whether that's Chris Carson, we bring in a guy, DJ, Travis, whoever. This is awesome for our run game. Our guards are set with Gabe and Damian. I think our interior O-line has looked its best it's ever looked under Pete Carroll and John Schneider right now. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, I think that, just getting somebody like Austin Blyth who's experienced in the Shane Waldron system and has also played he was with a very successful offense in Kansas City. He could provide a little bit more consistency than Ethan Posich, even though Posich was a good run blocker. I think that Austin Blyth has been doing it for longer and has been more consistent. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. And, hopefully, the main thing about Rashad Penny's game, besides being healthy, is also, with somebody who has that type of talent and explosiveness, we also need good blocking. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to be a super run-centric team this year. And, hopefully Rashad and Chris Carson or whoever goes off this year.
Yeah, lots of Pete Carroll ball this year, boys. Lots of Pete Carroll ball.
Hey, I've never had a problem with running the ball, but if you're going to run the ball, run it effectively. And if we're going to get 130 plus yard game from Penny every single time, then run the ball as much as you damn well please.
For sure.
Fantasy-wise, Rashad Penny might be a very good pick in fantasy this year.
Don't tell any of my buddies that because they're definitely starting to eye him. So
he's your sleeper. He's your sleeper pick.
He's my sleeper pick. I'm gonna hold out on him as long as I can. So
fair enough. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then last but very much not least, the final outside signing really isn't a big outside signing because he was playing for the Seahawks not even a few seasons ago. Mr. Quinton Jefferson himself, QJeff, signs a 2-year, $11 million deal with the Seahawks, and he's reunited with his former defensive line coach and Clint Hurt as the defensive coordinator. He's coming off of his best season of his career, 4.5 sacks, set a career high in QB hits and tackles for loss. I think he's going to be a fantastic big end in this 3-4 system again. And great signing altogether. Got him for a steal, in my opinion. So, what do you guys think?
I love this Quentin Jefferson signing. He has versatility to play defensive tackle or defensive end, and it'll be defensive end in the 3-4 we're going into. And he had some success in Seattle too against the run and just making plays. And he was one of those guys who just seemed to make the occasional play and stuff like that. And I definitely I think that he's a good veteran to have, and we didn't pay too much for him. So it's just awesome to bring one of our own back, and I think he's going to have a big year with us, and hopefully again, we really need that leadership in that defensive line interior.
Yeah, I think our interior line is going to be so nice this year. I think even how good it was last year, I think it's going to be even better this year with Shelby and Quinton. I think we completely upgraded at the 3 tech or whatever you want to call it at this 3-4, the big end. I saw something that he was going to start over Shelby Harris, which I don't know. I'm unsure about that. In my eyes, I've heard Shelby's better, but then again, Shelby's, 30, 31? So I'm not sure.
He's 30, I think, yeah.
I'm not sure who's going to start. Either way, I'm happy we got both of them. Quinton's a big signing. He's got familiarity with the coaches. I think John Schneider doesn't do a lot of free agents, but what he's done this year has been interesting, and I think it'll help our team.
Definitely.
All right. So with that, I think that covers all of our free agent re-signings, cuts, signings from other teams. So to switch gears a little bit, I figured that with all of the rumblings that have happened today regarding quarterback trades, that it warrants a little bit of a discussion. And that is the potential of Baker Mayfield possibly being traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Matt Ryan got traded to the Colts today. I thought, if anything, Baker Mayfield getting traded to the Falcons would be likely, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. The Saints re-signed Jameis Winston. It sounds like the Falcons might be re-signing Marcus Mariota. I thought he already signed, but it sounds like maybe something was wrong there. But anyways, my point being is the amount of places that Baker can really go, I think, is really reduced to either the Panthers and us at this point. So would you guys be willing to bring Baker in or trade for Baker? And what do you think it's going to take to bring him in?
Yeah, with Baker, I think, he's had a lot of last year was super banged up, so I don't really want to, crap him too much, but he looked pretty bad. And I think a lot of people agreed that he should have had his shoulder surgery earlier in the year, but he didn't have that. And he's just a quarterback who brings a lot of baggage with him, but not like off the field issues, but it's more so like, just the attention he requires, the drama he brings to things. And he's had questions of his leadership. And in a franchise that's dealing with so much turnover right now, I don't really think that's going to be the best thing. But Baker does have a very strong arm. He's at times can be a good leader, some teammates like him. He galvanized people. He did that in Oklahoma, at least. He's been kind of an underdog story type of player. But I think in order to get him, I'm going to say I don't think the Browns are going to get a day 2 pick for him. That's super optimistic at this point. And if you can get him for a 5th or 6th round pick, I think it's a decent opportunity to have somebody compete with Drew Lock. But honestly, I'd rather probably just bring their own guy, draft their own guy, especially when you have to pay Baker next year. And he seems like the guy who's going to, former number 1 overall pick, if he even has a half decent season, he's going to want something around, but probably $30 million a year or something. I'd even think, if he really has a good, successful year. And we have the weapons, though, to give him that. In Cleveland, he didn't really have he didn't have too many household names, especially with, Odell out and Jarvis Landry being, good, but maybe a little bit past his prime at this point. So also another thing is that I just don't want to listen to, more people, talk about the Seahawks and only talking about their quarterback play. We've heard so much of, Russell Wilson, about him getting all the credit when we do well. And even when we lose, just a casual take of, our defense isn't good, when in reality, Russ could be taking too many sacks or could be just struggling and just not keeping the offense out in the field. And, having a quarterback like Baker, his flaws are also going to be just super, they're going to be super magnified. So I don't know. I look, if we trade for Baker right now for a 5th round pick, I'd be intrigued. He has some upside. He has some talent. He's shown in the league. He can win. He can compete in the playoffs. He played pretty well in that Chiefs playoff game, but there's a lot of risk with it. So I'm either way, but I'd say I'd rather draft somebody, which is my stance all along pretty much.
I'd be okay with trading for Baker if we traded a 6th or 7th and we got back a 5th in Baker. Like, the guy's on a 1-year deal. This is a kind of a year where we can, experiment like that. Pete Carroll talks about always compete. So if he brings a guy in, maybe he'll bring the best out of Drew Lock and bring the best out of Baker. So I don't have a problem with it at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat. I would be willing to give up at most a 5th rounder, but I think you would need something back on their end as well. The way I look at it is, it's as long as it's at least a 5th rounder, it's very low risk with a high chance of reward. The way that I look at it is, best case scenario, Baker Mayfield is the next Drew Brees, who played his entire rookie contract in San Diego, had a busted shoulder just like Baker, and then left. Everybody thought he was terrible, went to the Saints, and then proceeded to have one of the best careers of any quarterback in NFL history. So that's the best case scenario. I'm not saying that's actually going to happen, but worst case scenario, you waste a 5th round, you give up a 5th round pick, you play horribly, you get a really high 1st round pick, and then you move on from him. You don't even bother re-signing him next season. So yeah. I think the chances of
yeah, honestly, maybe that's just a selfish view on my point, or like a bad view even, that I'm letting social media and the media in general influence what I want for this team, because obviously, Baker is probably he's proven to be a better quarterback than Drew Lock at this point. And I do like Drew's attitude, but I mean, I agree with what you guys said. There's not much risk in it. I agree with that part for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, I'm like refreshing Twitter like every 5 minutes to see if there's any update, but I have not seen. As far as I can tell, there's nothing new. So we'll probably hear something in the next couple of days, because I mean, and I think they're asking a day 2 pick. They're not going to get a day 2 pick, not in a million years.
No, they have zero leverage with this situation. They should have traded Baker in that Houston Texans trade. They kind of screwed themselves over with that. And honestly, I think Baker because a report came out just this last hour about him choosing Carolina over Seattle. It's like, Baker, man, be happy with where you go, because where you go is going to be a way better situation than what you've been in the last 4 years of your career. So
yeah, and I think I heard something along the lines of somebody put out a trade for they get Baker and a pick, and they take on all of his contract, which I think he's owed like 18 million or something this year. And I'm like, if that was Schneider, like, hey, I would have been okay with that. But either way, I think that's enough discussion about Baker. So we're a little bit past an hour here. So I think I just want to move into closing thoughts. How about each of you guys give me I guess I can start. Give me your best free agency move, your worst free agency move, and then a free agency move you still want the Seahawks to make. So I'll go first. Best free agency move so far was re-signing Sidney Jones to that 1 year, $3.6 million deal. Highway robbery. Dude is a great CB2, could maybe even be a CB1 this season. Played great opposite DJ Reed, and getting him for way less than I expected was fantastic. Worst signing, I think most people agree, is probably the Will Dissly signing. He's a good blocker. He's a good route runner, not very athletic at all, but has good hands, but has done nothing to earn $8 million a year. There's an easy out after 2 seasons, but that shouldn't be a justification for how much money he's making. And then as far as a signing I still want them to do, I got to take a look at my tier list again. But tackles are really starting to fly off the board. So I'm really hoping they go out and get somebody like maybe like an Eric Fisher. If you really want to blow everybody out of the water, go and get a Teron Armstead, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. So Danny, how about you give your closing thoughts?
Okay, so my least favorite move has been, I would say, the Will Dissly contract. I think that's kind of, how everybody is feeling. My favorite move would be Uchenna, just because I feel like we need a 3-4 outside linebacker with experience in the system. And then what I want them to make, since you already covered tackle, is I think if you can get Jadeveon Clowney for the low, I would be willing to bring him back.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, with terms of best move, I'd say probably Sidney Jones or Artie Burns. All these moves are pretty low risk, high reward. We didn't really overpay anybody. Besides, arguably one. I mean, we did actually overpay some people, but we overpaid Will Dissly, who's going to be my worst move. I was going to say Kyle Fuller in terms of talent, but Will Dissly just paid him too much. We could have gotten the guy for way less per year, in my opinion. And for a backup tight end, too much. He was somebody $24 million, even though it's really 2 years, $14 million, like you said. And best move, I agree totally with Danny there, Jadeveon Clowney. just with him coming off one of his best seasons, he's a blue chip type player. We've seen him in Seattle before, and getting somebody who's has potential to be like when he's on his game, he's one of the best players in the league. He's one of the best edge rushers in the league. He has so much talent that if we can get him for something like, maybe 8-9 a year for 2 years or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that's what he's going to go for, but that'd be pretty sick, So I'd love to bring Jadeveon back, and yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining on here. I'm happy that we're actually making this a regular thing. You guys are awesome to talk to, and I really appreciate your guys' insight. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. So this one, we're going to be making an actual Walk the Hawk channel. As far as I understand, currently the first 2 episodes are going to be up on my channel, BK Voiceover, but we're going to be moving those over there once that work is all done. So be on the lookout for that. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the content, and have a great rest of your week, everybody, and go Hawks.